Welcome to those far and wide. This is the afternoon idol, which isn't actually afternoon where I live, but I liked the name. It was kind of, well, I thought it was clever. And my name is Andrew. I'm a certified mindfulness meditation coach in the Unified Mindfulness System. You can find out more about at unifiedmindfulness.com. Hello, Sarah, and hello, everyone else. Hello, Angie. So today being Thursday, so we've sort of I've arbitrarily made Thursday reverse day. Hello, Gabrielle. And what we'll do is in our normal contrast sits, we'll switch the order of things. We're going to switch. Usually we do something and we contrast it with the do nothing practice. And that's usually finished up at the end. So what we'll do today is we'll switch them around. And then for the something practice today, we're going to do a bit of something that's referred to as focus in the Unified Mindfulness System. So in we have a way of meeting all of sensory experience by being able to look at how our attention is focusing within three categories, and that's see, hear, and feel. Each of those categories, see, hear, and feel, have an inner and outer aspect. So in see in, that would be mental image, and hear in, that would be mental talk, and then feel in would be the emotional body sensations. And so when we say focus in, we're saying all three of those categories are fair game. And so anytime we have a technique, at least we can think of this very generally across all techniques, but there is a focus range, like what are you focusing on within experience? We won't talk about it today, but you can think of experience having two qualities, sensory experience and motor experience. So motor experience, like the idea of me moving my arms around, there's a different quality to me controlling my arm and moving that around. And that's, we can think of that as motor. That's a motor experience aspect. It's a little bit out of the scope for what I want to talk about today, but so when I just say experience, we're either talking sensory experience or motor experience or sensory experience. I tend to stay in the sensory experience area. And so for us, then what we have in each technique is a focus range. So what are we focusing on within sensory experience in this case? And then we have an instruction set. And that instruction set is like, in essence, what are we focusing on is the focus range, and how are we focusing on it would be the instruction set. So like, what are we really doing? Meditation's cool, but what are we doing? So in general, we would say that we're familiarizing the mind with particular states of being would be kind of a very general way of looking at it. But in this case, in focus in, we would say then that we are using a noting technique, and the noting technique is for us to be aware of, and we're in essence stringing together high concentration moments over time. So we're being very concentrated within that focus range. We're allowing our attention to sort of rest or soak in. I like the analogy or this analogy or notion of soaking in. And then we're using a bit of sort of skillful thinking to optionally note or to label, what we're noting. So noting and labeling, sometimes when you listen to someone talk about it, they'll almost use them as synonyms. So at least in the Unified Mindfulness System, the way we look at it, they're not synonyms. So a noting practice is in essence that we're stringing together these high moments of concentration over time. And think of them almost like a sawtoothing action of like, I'm paying attention to this. And as long as I'm staying within my focus range, then we're remaining with what we were focusing on. So that so the anatomy, if you will, or sort of an abstract anatomy around a noting practice would be that we're noticing high concentration, all of our attention where we are at that moment. soaking the attention in. And then we use the label almost like someone would spot us when we would be doing an exercise in the gym. I know gyms are a place we're not thinking about being nowadays, but I always think about my label as sort of that person that's sort of making sure they could catch the barbell, or if I'm doing bench press or something. So my noting is really kind of the primary exercise, and the labeling is just helping me stay there. You can also think of it as a way that if the noting isn't going the way that you want, you'll notice that you've gotten foggy or you're less in touch. So the end of our practice today, we'll do a focus in. Part of the reason I like focus in, or part of the reason I chose it for today, is that when you do that as a cross-training sort of exercise, you begin to be able to untangle what's going on in sensory experience. So when focusing in is fair game, we can start to see when I have mental talk that leads to mental image, which creates potentially or triggers emotional body sensation. Or maybe the opposite. There's an emotional sensation and that leads to talk, to mental talk as a way to try to confabulate and figure out what the explanation is. So I have this, I had in Star Wars speak. I have a bad feeling about this. This, I think, has appeared in all of the 9 feature movies. So I have a bad feeling about this. So that means I'm basically saying that there's some feel-in quality that's going on. And in essence, from a mindful perspective, we're saying like, oh, well, that due to equanimity or inner smoothness muscle, there's enough room for that bad feeling. We're not going to push it away. And then if we have a good feeling or a bad feeling, we're not holding on to and saying, we're going to keep this in place. So we're not pushing or pulling on our experience. So in doing this focus in technique, it begins to allow us to see the higher resolution and kind of what's going on. So we'll see if this is available. Maybe it's not, but do nothing can sometimes, this wide aperture of allowing your attention to be wherever you want, can lead to a sort of settling, and you may be able to do focus in with a bit of a shift that you can see some of these things more clearly. Just a thought. And if it's not, then it was all a bunch of hokum and don't listen to me. But yeah, so we'll have 15 minutes. You are always welcome to ignore me and just sort of hang out. Or you're always welcome to shift to home base practice that is better at supporting you where you are in this moment. It's always available for you. So I invite you to check in with your posture, and if it's posture that's comfortable, that will help allow you to be both relaxed and alert, then everything is good. Each of us holds tension in the body and often different places. So just checking in to see if there's any tension present, and entertaining the idea that by noticing the tension, it may subside or release. And if it doesn't, that's our first opportunity to bring a no big deal kind of attitude towards what's going on. There's enough space for that tension. And then a few deliberate, conscious breaths, ideally in through the nose and out through the nose, if that's available for you. If you're not congested or stuffy. So as the Beastie Boys say, slow and low is the tempo as we do these deliberate breaths. Breathing in slow allows us to fill the lower lungs. Breathing out slow cues the nervous system that it's okay to flip on the chill out side of the nervous system if that's available. And then to begin today, as I noted, we're sort of swapping our order. So we're using the technique of no technique. And to the question, well, what do we do when we do nothing? One answer can be that we let whatever happens happen. And if we spontaneously realize that we're trying to shape or conduct or control what's going on in our experience, we let that go. And if we were sort of actively monitoring for whether or not we were controlling our experience, that would be something. Think of it that way, maybe. So we're just, in essence, in this free range, allowing the attention to go wherever it wants, knowing that it might choose places to go that are annoying or not what you were hoping for. So explore this choiceless awareness stance. Good. So now let's shift to the technique of focusing. And as we shift, you just might want to check in with where you're at, if there's anything alive or available in the emotional body, so if there's anything going on. So if there's an emotional sensation, we would notice that, soak the attention in, and label it feel. There may, if you are able to contact some tranquility and do nothing, there may not be any activation in see in, hear in, or feel in. Again, not a problem. Might even say that's a reward state. So if that's the case, you could label that rest. And then finally, if you find that there's a mental image and mental talk at the same time, you don't have to note both. You can pick one. It's totally fine. No one will be grading you after this is over, so. Ideally, we would like to have a bit of a pleasing pace to how we're real-time tracking what's going on when we focus in. So explore each of these categories. Feel in, see in, hear in. And if you're not used to labeling and the labels feel clumsy, that's good information. It's not a bad thing. So you may explore the idea that if there's mental talk or mental image, that noticing and soaking the attention in, we know that it's mental image, or we know that it's mental talk. That label might be extra, so you can always drop the labels. And then there's no need to include in when we're labeling, so you can always use the short form. See, hear, and feel, knowing that it's the inner experience that's being labeled. If your eyes have been closed, I invite you to open them and connect to your surroundings. Thank you so much for spending 20 plus minutes. I said it the other day, but just to emphasize that this like right laziness idea, just getting into this, like getting into the point of doing practice is to me a success. So then if I approach that, that's all the effort I need. And then all the things that, whether it's a good sit or a bad sit, it's like pizza. Even bad pizza is still good. Maybe if you like pizza, maybe if you don't, then that's, but hot or cold, and that shift has been remarkably helpful for me. I know that, at least we can think of it in terms, the skills-based lens from even if I have a bad sit, it's training my concentration, my clarity, and my equanimity. That's the CC&E, the three skills that our techniques are in essence training. So even when we do nothing, we're training aspects of concentration, clarity, and equanimity. And often with do nothing, I would make this argument that it is accentuating the training of equanimity. And I think that's what, in my little bits, what I see Jeff sort of driving at too. So you're remarkably welcome, Gabrielle and Sarah and Angie. Thank you so much for being here and being part of that. So just as an aside, like I feel like there's this concept that you'll hear in like Tai Chi where they talk about if you need to use 3 units of force to do something, you should only use 3 units. If you use 2 units, that's insufficient. That you use 5 units. So it's like this sort of almost internal approach to trying to find the balance of how much effort. I think it'd be easy to fixate on that to a degree. So to me, like the bare minimum is just making it to the cushion or making it to the chair. That's the effort that's needed, and then the ability to sit there. I even sort of let myself off the hook where if I'm not experiencing, if things are going sideways, I'll suspend practice. I'll get up and I'll acknowledge this isn't a good time for me to practice. So in the focus in, I would just offer that I don't know if my mic picks this up, but I had 2 cars go by, and one of them sounds exactly like the USPS car. And so I had external sound that in theory is out of my focus range, but it generated a mental image, which then generated a story, mental talk about me having this mental image from my external stimulus. So there's nothing wrong with any of that, but to me, the focus in begins to allow you to see these sort of the sort of interactions with that closed system. And in Shinzen's way of looking at this, the untangle and be free, is that you're able to begin untangling the threads of that inner experience. And in that, there is a freedom to not be, as Dan Harris says, sort of yanked around by what's going on. So if that was any of that was available to you, I'm always up for hearing reports. If that was totally confusing, I'll try better next time. So, all right. So Friday, I'm thinking about doing friendliness practice on Friday. So we'll do some variation of nurture positive or meta practice tomorrow as our something part, and then we'll finish off with do nothing. So cool. I'm glad those were good references then. So thank you again for spending a portion of your day, and I hope you have a very good day.